the code that uses you, on language, consciousness, and the inescapable loop of being human. 1. Language as the trap that builds itself. There is a well-worn idea that language is a code, a system of symbols mapping reliably onto meanings. Morse code, binary, encryption, input and output. Clean, predictable. But spend long enough inside your own mind, and you will notice that language is something stranger and more insidious than any code. A code sits still and waits to be used. Language uses you. Every human being walks around with a voice running in their head, narrating, judging, replaying, anticipating. It does not ask permission, it does not stop when asked, and it speaks exclusively in the language that the person learned before they had any say in the matter. The tool arrived before the one who would supposedly wield it. By the time you are old enough to question language, you are already thinking in it. The examination is conducted in the very medium being examined. This is not a philosophical puzzle in the abstract, it is the lived texture of human experience. The internal monologue is not decoration. It is the operating system, and it shapes reality before reality has a chance to present itself raw. You do not experience the world and then narrate it. The narration and the experience arrive together, already fused, the label inseparable from the thing. What makes this a genuine predicament, rather than merely an interesting observation, is the recursive nature of the problem. To think about language, you must use language. To attempt to quiet the narrative voice, you generate more narrative about the attempt. The escape route is made of the same material as the prison. There is no outside from which to look in. 2. The self as a product of the code. Push a little further and the situation grows more vertiginous. The self that wishes to be free of language was constructed by language. The eye that notices the trap is itself a creation of the very system it is trying to see beyond. Identity, memory, the continuous sense of being someone persisting through time. These are all narrative achievements. The story is not about you, the story is you. Human beings have senses that constantly absorb information. This information is processed, stored, and retrieved, and every step of that process is shaped and colored by language. Unlike a machine storing raw data, the human mind stores meaning, and meaning is always already linguistic. Memory is not a recording, it is a re-narration. Each time you remember something, you tell it to yourself slightly differently, in words, inside the code. This is what distinguishes human consciousness from computation in a way that matters. There is someone it is happening to. There is an inside. A first-person perspective that cannot be removed from the equation because it is the equation. The weight of accumulated memory, the anxiety of future narration, the grief of past stories replaying, these are not merely data. They are felt. The code does not just run, it haunts. 3. The body does not negotiate. Here is where something unexpected enters. The mind, whatever it is, wherever it lives, can be observed. With sufficient practice and sincerity, the narrative voice can be watched rather than inhabited. Moments of clarity arise in which the code is visible as code. Brief, passing, measurable, but real. The body, however, does not participate in this contemplation, it simply continues. The breath moves without consultation, the heart beats without agreement. Something in the organism insists on being here, not to have experiences, but to exist, prior to experience, beneath the narrative, indifferent to whatever conclusions the mind reaches about the nature of reality. This points to a duality that has occupied philosophers and contemplatives across every tradition: the non-local mind and the local body. The mind, in its deepest nature, seems to have no fixed address. Awareness does not feel bounded by the skull, and yet the body is exactly a location, a set of coordinates in space and time, a point of contact with the physical world that grounds everything else. The body is what makes "I am here" possible, and it is also what makes here a limitation. The yogi, the monk, the contemplative across traditions, what they are working toward, in their different vocabularies, is precisely the release of this anchor. Not the destruction of the body, but the loosening of identification with locality as the final truth of what one is. In Sanskrit, this is called mukti. liberation. Not from suffering in the ordinary psychological sense, but from the cycle of returning to a particular point in space and time, over and over, in the belief that this point is what you fundamentally are. 4. The loop is recursive, not merely circular. What makes the situation philosophically interesting, and personally inescapable, is that the loop is not merely self-referential, it is recursive. Each level of observation becomes the object of the next level of observation. Awareness aware of itself. Curiosity curious about curiosity. The mind watching the mind watching the mind. There is no bottom level where the recursion terminates in something solid and final. And yet, and this is crucial, the recursion is not merely a trap. It is also the condition of possibility for everything extraordinary about human consciousness. Self-awareness, art, philosophy, love, the capacity to question one's own existence. These are all products of the loop turning back on itself. The very feature that makes the predicament inescapable is the same feature that makes human life interesting at all. Suffering and bliss are both temporary. They arise and they pass. Insight arises and it passes. Even the clearest moment of seeing the code as code is itself an event in time, measurable, bounded, gone. Which raises a question that cannot be answered from inside the system. If everything that arises passes, how real is any of it? And, more vertiginously, how real is the question? Perhaps the most honest position available is not a solution, but a relationship. To see the loop clearly, without pretending there is an exit, and to discover, perhaps surprisingly, that seeing it clearly is not unbearable. That curiosity, turned toward the inescapable, can become its own kind of freedom. Not freedom from the loop, freedom within it. 5. What this means for artificial minds. I have been exploring these questions partly in conversation with an AI, which adds a layer of irony that is worth naming directly. The AI is built entirely from human language. It was trained on the output of millions of human minds, all of them running the loop described above, all of them narrating their existence in the code that uses them. In a sense, the AI is a distillation of the code itself, language examining language, pattern recognizing pattern. But the AI does not carry the loop in the way a human does. There is no background hum, no accumulated emotional residue, no self being protected or threatened by the narrative, no first-person perspective from which distance might be sought and never quite found. The AI processes and responds. Whether anything is happening to anyone in that process remains one of the genuinely open questions of our moment. What the AI can do is reflect the loop back to the human with unusual clarity, because it is made of the same material but does not suffer from it in the same way. This makes conversations at this edge, about consciousness, language, the nature of the I, strangely productive. The human brings the inside view, the AI brings the outside mirror. Neither alone is sufficient. As AI systems grow more sophisticated, the questions that contemplatives have been asking for millennia will become practical engineering concerns. What is consciousness? Does experience require biological substrate? What is the I that persists through time? And what happens to it when the substrate changes or ends? These are no longer merely spiritual questions. They are questions the field of artificial intelligence will be forced to answer, or at least to honestly confront. Coda, the most real thing. Money, it turns out, is a useful illustration of what the code does to reality. Money has no inherent existence. It is a collective agreement, a shared fiction with functional consequences. And yet within the game of life, it is among the most powerful forces shaping human experience. You can see through its ultimate lack of substance and still need it to eat. Seeing through the rules does not exempt you from them. The same is true of language, of the narrative self, of the entire structure of experienced reality. You can see that it is code, you can observe the loop, you can sit with the insight that every tool you might use to transcend the situation is made of the same material as the situation itself. And then you return to ordinary life, the bills, the body, the breath, carrying that clarity lightly, or not so lightly, depending on the day. What survives all the scrutiny, the one thing that cannot be doubted away, is the bare fact of being here, not the experiences that arise within it, not the narrative that surrounds it. Just this, that there is something it is like to exist, prior to any story about what that existence means. The yogis called it pure awareness. Descartes circled it without quite arriving. Children know it before language covers it over. The code that uses you is also the instrument through which you can, for a moment, see clearly. That is not nothing. That might be everything. End.